we are emitting and receiving vibrationally all the time. So when you change what you're emitting with a homeopathic remedy, it is so common, I can't tell you. I mean, it happened to me. Homeopathy is good for all of us. You don't have to have a physical thing holding you back. You think about the way they're trying to use our minds currently to feed into creating these technocratic, totalitarian kind of society. And I think if everybody had access to homeopathic treatment, you reconnect to that true spirit, but then you have resilience. You can stand up and say, actually, no, we want that magic. We want that, sort of whimsical way. And I think that is how we win the next season of humanity.
Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, it's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Inspired Conversation. We had an extraordinary guest today. This is one of those stories that movies are going to be created for, books are going to be written about. There's a girl in Australia years ago who was very skeptical, about alternative medicine, about healing. But then, life did its thing and she experienced some hardships and ended up trying something that was almost a lost, almost a forgotten form of healing. And it worked so well for her that she ended up starting one of the biggest, I can say this now, one of the biggest healing revolutions in the world today. Her organization is one of the fastest growing ones, and she's doing amazing work soon all over the world and bringing back, like I said, an almost forgotten healing methodology, a remedy, a medicine. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Please welcome with me Melissa Kupsch. It's so wonderful to have you.
Thank you so much, Sean. What an introduction. I love it.
Every word is true. Every word is true. I'm amazed at what you're doing. You're like you've been having your foot on the gas, full pedal to the metal, and you created this beautiful remedy, RMDY, this beautiful organization that is, it's becoming a movement, really.
Mm.
Um, in Australia, we're going to talk about how it's expanding. Now, you've written a book. It's absolutely amazing, and it's all about something that most people have forgotten about. A form of healing medicine called homeopathy, very well known before the reset. And then medicine was reset, healing was reset, the world was reset, and we kind of mostly forgot about it. How did that find you? Like I hinted at it, but what was your first contact with homeopathy?
So I was actually 2 years into a degree in naturopathy. So more herbal, more supplements, lifestyle. And I always said, I think it was inevitable that I would find myself in natural health. My dad is a doctor, my mum is a hippie. And yeah, I sort of grew up around the infrared saunas, from when we were 13. I'd do my homework in there. So I loved all of the holistic things. And then it was 2 years into the naturopathic degree that my sister, who's a year younger, was extremely unwell. And she had been in and out of hospital for nearly 6 years. And the doctors really could not figure out what was going on with her systemic infections. We had the best specialists, that modern medicine apparently has in the hospitals, but they were really clueless as to what was going on with her body. And being that I was in the more naturopathic and natural medicine field, she'd done everything holistic that we could think of. She'd done the acupuncture, Chinese medicine, grounding. We took 6 weeks off just to relax and travel around in a caravan, try and ground and meditate. And it truly could not rewire this pattern she had, landing her in hospital that would be a urinary tract infection that would lead to an infection in the blood. And it wasn't until I had this one lecturer at school who said, you would be an amazing homeopath, you would love homeopathy. And I really used to fob it off because I hadn't heard of it, which is striking to me as somebody who was studying at a college of natural medicine. And I had never really heard of it, nor definitely didn't understand it. So when she'd met with this homeopath, Eventually, I did an appointment with that lecturer and I said, if you can cure her chronic disease, I will change my degree over. And at that point, when he sat down with us in a coffee shop and he just asked her, right, tell me everything about your life, about your symptoms, when did they start? What sort of emotions do you think you might have suppressed? And, we're both young. We're like 21, 22, and we're like, oh, nothing. Like, we're pretty fine. We're pretty well calibrated. And then he says to her, what do you like in traffic if you get cut off? And she says, well, yeah, raging lunatic. We start laughing. And he says, well, some of us don't feel comfortable, expressing our anger. And so it can seep out at situations like that. And then she started crying in the consult. And I thought, oh, okay, we're on to something here. And he gave her a remedy. And within days, we were seeing this huge physical, mental, and emotional purge. So, yeah, I was very skeptical at the time. I thought, okay, wait a minute. Like, I am seeing this before my eyes, but it was only 2 drops under the tongue that she was taking a day of this little vibrational medicine. Like, that's just not possible that all of these discharges are to do with that medicine or, the, emotion that was pouring out of her. And yet the symptoms just got better and better. So then I really sort of had to reconcile, could this be for real? And I said, all right, if you treat me now and you pull this off like a 2 out of 2, then I really will change my degree. And so he sat with me and he asked me all about my life. What foods do you crave? What position do you sleep in? Just such bizarre questions that somebody would ask. And yet, when you see our homeopathic materia medicas or our repertories, these are huge medical texts. And it is a very scientific system of medicine. I mean, compared to what people currently will receive. If you have depression and you were to go into the doctor's office, it's sort of this is your very limited choice of antidepressants. We are really only going to target these like certain areas and sort of, shut that down and sort of try and approach it from that angle. Whereas when somebody comes to the homeopath with depression, we need to understand your unique experience of depression because the root for everybody can be different. And so the homeopath might see that this is a generational issue, that deep, dark depression has actually gone up your family lines. Maybe there's severe mental health, bipolar, schizophrenia. And so we understand susceptibility. So this is a lot of the kids who make their way into homeopathic offices where they are 8 years old and they are deeply, darkly depressed. And unfortunately, they will now get put on SSRIs even at that young age. So that's the generational aspect that a homeopath might want to clear. But then for some people, it's, they've been depressed since the loss of, a husband or wife, for example. And it's this a very different state and it's really suppressed grief that has shut down their heart and is causing the depression. So, yeah, the homeopaths are very specific in all of the information that they gather. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it is an energy medicine. It acknowledges that we as human beings, as living things, living organisms, that we have a vital force. This is the divine intelligent force, the field that really it controls like the constant healing of our body. So if you get a cut on your arm, you don't panic and think you're going to bleed out. You can trust that your body is intelligent enough that it knows there's a cut. It will send clotting factors, it will send platelets to scab up. You will heal and you will be fine. And the body does this with so many different mechanisms, but sometimes we forget how divinely intelligent it is and that our symptoms are just messages about the ways that we are out of balance. And if we can stimulate that field, it can heal itself. So that's really the general gist of homeopathy.
The mainstream science to this day says this shouldn't work. This actually shouldn't work because when it looks at a heavily diluted essence, there's really nothing of that original source material there anymore. However, the success rate is extraordinarily high, higher than in any other field of medicine, and that's recorded. That's like this is scientific fact. So people are experiencing revolutionary healing paths using homeopathy. But the question for so many people that are maybe have heard about it and seen some of it and even experiences, how does it work? You say it's an energetic medicine, but when you, like I said, when you look at these essences, there's barely anything left.
Mm,
How were these particular essences discovered? You know, you have some here in this first aid kit. And how was it discovered that a particular essence helps for a particular problem?
mhm. So the first aspect of homeopathy, that dilution and succussion factor, where people are stumped, they're saying, but there shouldn't be any molecules left in this. Now, with homeopathy, we use many different remedies. There's actually over 8,000 different remedies that we can use to heal people, and they are uniquely taken from different sources in nature. Some are minerals. You might have sulfur, for example. That was the first remedy I was ever prescribed. And when given sulfur, it causes a huge detoxing and cleansing of the liver. I used to be prone to cold sores. After I took that sulfur that night, I broke out in 7 cold sores around my lips, but then I never had one again. So it caused this huge detoxification and push out of the viral load, if you will, and then no longer susceptible. So you can harness things from minerals or plants or tissue. Now, my sister, hers was Staphysagria. That is a plant. So imagine we take this and we take it into the homeopathic pharmacy, this Staphysagrian plant. And we are then going to do a very strict process with it to pretty much, we're trying to release the frequency, all of the vibration of this plant, all of that healing, energy, and yet, we don't want any toxins from these plants or minerals because a lot of them do come from poisons. So, your belladonna, the deadly nightshades, you don't want to ingest crude doses of belladonna or arsenic. We have a very popular remedy, arsenic amalgam, made from arsenic. So, this dilution and succussion process is really important. And what we find, we use water as the conduit though. So you will get the Staphysagria, you'll put it in that water, shake it a lot, 1 part, to 99. So, and then we take it across. But where the modern science is sort of coming in to show how homeopathy can do this is that water has consciousness. Water holds memory. If you really want to get into the depths of what water is capable of, they are storing information in water. We know that emotions affect the crystalline structure of water. So, with the homeopathic frequencies, do you know Veda Austin, John?
Yeah, 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 I do.
Yeah, beautiful. And so she does a unique freezing process of water where she has either put something in the water and then removed it and done a quick flash freezing process. And it shows in that water the way that it freezes literal pictures of what was in there. So if it was a flower and you take it out and you see what she catches flash frozen, remarkable. She's also done some other studies where she will put a word, and the word might even be in Hebrew, not even an English word. And she will put that under there in the text under her petri dish. She will sort of, put all of that energy into it, that it will take that word. And when she flash freezes it, the picture that emerges is the literal picture of what that word said in another language. So the intelligence of water and the consciousness aspect is just phenomenal. But from the purely homeopathic sense, she did a study recently that she posted online where she flash froze lots of different homeopathic remedies, and she showed that arnica, it replicates when you put those drops into the water and you flash freeze it. You can see these stunning, what look like plant pictures emerging, and it's repeatable. So we understand that the frequency changes the water, and when ingested, I mean, how much is the human being made up of water? And then our body has this huge physical, mental, and emotional response. I would say that homeopathy really is a medicine of the spirit. And our spirit, it is ethereal, it is more energetic, it is the field. And, even Einstein said it, energy precedes mass. If you can change your energetic blueprint, you can change what hormones are released, what neurotransmitters are released, where things are inflamed, when the body needs to detox. So it's through homeopathic remedies that we can stimulate all of that. We can rewire the field. If we were born with what we call miasms in homeopathy, which is inherited taints, if you will. Now, how that comes about is I'll give you an example of where we see it commonly. You might have had in a few generations ago, a lot more TB, tuberculosis. Now, this is predominantly an affliction of the lungs. Now, when they treat the tuberculosis with drugs, you don't actually address that underlying energetic distortion of the lungs. You might, save the life, prevent, spreading or like things getting worse. Usually, the TB will sort of be cordoned off by the body, trying to sort of trap it and keep it safe, like it would with asbestos or something else really toxic, but the energetic distortion can remain. So when that person then goes to have a baby, yes, by all accounts, they are said to not have TB. But what we notice again and again is that the children are often born with severe respiratory issues. So babies can be born with asthma from day dot. And you can see this real immune susceptibility. So things like allergic to grass, allergic to cats and dogs. It's quite a tubercular thing. The eczema, asthma, hay fever, allergies is classic of that. And so this is where the homeopath, when they're taking the case and it's like, okay, we've got this child with eczema or asthma, and we need to find where is the source of this energetic distortion. It's something we always want to ask ourselves. Why is it so in this case? Because every case is different, but you can absolutely see these strong correlations of energy coming down family lines. I would caveat that to say, as homeopaths, we're not big on, oh, it's your genetics. Of course not. But we would say it is the energetics that can flow down. Now, you can rewire that. Absolutely. People can change their vibration on their own. They can do that through prayer, through meditation. Um, Absolutely. Acupuncture rewires energy, but homeopathy is just another really powerful one to get to the root of some of these, sometimes they're even so subconscious, we don't even realize. I know when I've taken homeopathic remedies before and I have this big purging of some sort of emotion, I think, my gosh, I would never have guessed that that was under the surface for me or in my field. I didn't realize I'd hung on, to this. And it's not until we move it out, that that black cloud for, certain people, if it was that depression in childhood, when that lifts and they realize, oh my gosh, this was not even my energy to begin with. It's just been carrying down those lines. Mm.
It's, both Christine, especially Christine, but we both have a background in family constellation, and systemic family constellation as well, and it's very, the core message is basically the same, that we oftentimes struggle with things that express in our generation that happened somewhere in our lineage, but we don't even know what the root cause there was. And in family constellation, that can sort of reveal itself. And through homeopathy, that can not only reveal itself, but also heal then in the present, in the now. What's fascinating, Mel, is that you go and you're skeptical about this thing, and then you experience your sister's healing, your own healing. You're like, okay, I'm in. I'm studying this. You become a homeopath. But then, what lit the fire underneath you? Because you literally you started now one of the if not the fastest growing homeopathy organization in the world. And I'm just I'm observing this with such joy, seeing this growth, seeing this expansion. But do you remember why you wanted to start this? Like, what did you discover maybe about the history that made that happen?
Yeah, I definitely, when I realized that the suppression of homeopathy was intentional, and I could see the way the world was going, this very much pharmaceutical corruption, the buying out of our governments, corrupt reports. There was an email that went out on behalf of the Maha group in America. and it was about the scientific studies that were published in medical journals. And you would have an MD, you would have an oncologist who also used homeopathy in his cancer treatments. And when he was saying using the homeopathy reduced mortality by like significantly, and he publishes it and it gets 60,000 downloads, and then the medical doctors are petitioning to have that article removed, you realize this is, of course, not about health, and it's a very intentional attack on a system of medicine that, to me, would set the world free in so many ways. Because when I look around these days, in my circles, I'm going to be honest, it's pretty high vibe. We're all pretty wholesome, pretty happy to be alive. But the general population is really struggling mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, absolutely bent out of shape and not really sure, how to get through it and heal, because they go to the people that they were told to trust and they're finding it's a bit of a dead end. It's not getting them where they want to go. And for me, I started my career in fertility and I loved it. I had a fertility protocol that I had learned from another phenomenal homeopath, and it was so successful. I started out, from really nothing. My husband was still working full time, and I just on Instagram said, I'm going to look for 6 women who are trying to get pregnant. You need to have been trying for at least a year, and I'd love to have a mix of pathology. I'd love some people with endo, some people with PCOS, some women, just a whole range. And all of those women who had been trying, some of them for years, and a lot of them were nurses who'd signed up, they were all pregnant within 4 months. And so that sort of kick-started the fascination, and people talk, nurses particularly talk. And then in the next round, I had 6 nurses from the same hospital who were trying to get pregnant. Nurses can be really susceptible because they're often doing shift work under fluoro lights, lots of medical interventions for them, often a lot of toxicity. And so the homeopathy, recalibrating all of that. So it really took off. When I got to the point that I was booked out like 6 months in advance, I really just thought, my gosh, like we need so many more homeopaths. Like this is just an insane demand. And so I started off with a little short course and I thought, okay, I can at least train up naturopaths, kinesiologists, like these people who are well equipped with healing and understanding the backstory, and just give them like a little, fertility aspect that they could use. And they were all really successful. But the demand came like from them. People are just blown away when they start to learn about those homeopathic profiles, right? Like this is our classical prescribing. So where I say I was first prescribed sulfur, that homeopath had looked at my whole case and he said, look, I think you inherently have this sort of energy. And the reasons why he picked that for me, like some of them were because I had a history of suppressing skin conditions, because I'd taken a toxic drug called Roaccutane that he would want to cleanse out. But a lot of it was my personality. It was the fact that I am very philosophically minded, and I always had been. It was the subject at school that I absolutely blitzed, and it was logic and reason. And I would have been fascinated at 18 around quantum entanglement and manifestation. And this is all when you read about the sulfur person, they are often, they can be really brilliant minded. And then they have some, other susceptibilities, physically, but also when you read about it in these textbooks, and it would be pages upon pages of symptoms that you might see of a sulfur constitution. But even little things down to they're often really messy, and their workspace, they might be a creative genius, but they can be like a real slob, these kind of random things. And, when you read through and when people recognize themselves in these profiles, it is incredible. I think the healing that people get, even in learning, they're not alone and they're not entirely unique, that these patterns of human health, mental and emotional, all of it. Yeah, so then we just sort of thought around the COVID era, my husband and I, he was still working full time at that point in building building high rises in the city. And I just said to him, like, I really think we should give this a crack. Like, the world needs homeopathy. It doesn't know necessarily how much it needs it, but it does. And so in, I think it was 2021, he came home and I sort of went for it. And COVID couldn't have been better timed to bolster interest in alternative healing. People who said, like, that's enough. I want to learn how to thrive. I'm sick of, just, yeah, being on the back foot there. And, as we're looking to expand, we're building healing centers. So we have our first opening in Australia. A lot of people aren't aware that we had homeopathic hospitals. You guys had so many across the United States, over 100 at the turn of the 1900s. You had over 1,000 homeopathic pharmacies. Like, it was a very, I will say, like, we were sort of par on par. People don't realize that the AMA was actually created in response to the AIH a few years earlier. So the homeopaths got together, they said, let's have this committee, let's make this huge. And the AMA is like, whoa. And so they were created after, and they made it such at that time, a lot of the people who were homeopaths were medical doctors prior. They had been trained up in that old way, bearing in mind medicine the way they were trained back then. A lot of it was heroic medicine. They were still doing the mercury, they were doing the bloodletting, the leeches, those sorts of things. And it was very clear to those medical doctors when they experienced homeopathy, they were like, my gosh, this is the way, this is the truth, and that's what I'm going to follow. And there's a famous homeopath, Constantine Herring, and he was said to be, the really elite at the medical school, like that real teacher's pet, valedictorian, like phenomenal student. And he was commissioned by sort of the medical industry to do a knock piece on homeopathy, try and tear it apart. So he's like, yeah, excellent, I'll do that. And so he starts hanging around and he's asking like what they do. And obviously, logically, it doesn't make sense that ultra dilutions could work. And so he's writing it up. But then he has a dissecting wound in one of his medical practices. And he wanted to be a surgeon. And so, but the mainstream medical system at that point, they said, there's no choice. You must amputate that finger or you're going to lose probably even more. You'll lose your hand. And in desperation, he sought a homeopath. And they gave him, I think it was arsenicum album, and it completely, healed. And he thought, oh my goodness. And then he became one of the most like fanatical homeopaths. They say he used to get up in bars at night and he'd be standing on the table and just saying, listen to me, everyone, you are in the hands of cutthroats. That's what he was calling modern medicine at that time, established medicine, we might say. So, yeah, a lot of those people as they came across. So then they actually made a rule in the AMA. It is against our guidelines. You will lose your registration as a doctor if you fraternize with a homeopath, and certainly if you consult with a homeopath on a case. And they would have done that knowing that once they see what it can do, they would no longer dish out those drugs. So it was protective. And they had a couple of cases where you had medical doctors back then who were married to homeopaths. The females were homeopaths, and homeopaths, we let women into the scene long before women were allowed into medicine back then. We embraced women, knowing that we are also uniquely gifted in that case taking process. Our empathy, our compassion to hear and receive cases, it's very well suited to both men and women, as is, all of medicine. But yeah, that's really how they tried to stomp it out. That's how they've tried to hide it. But like all truth, you never truly extinguish it. And now the time is just right. We're just going to turn this world around, and the demand is there on all sides. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm also amazed with, you bring in a little bit of glitz and glamour and much more joy to the field. I remember being around homeopaths and of course wonderful people doing great work, but there wasn't that kind of enthusiasm. It's just, and I think part of it is that that's what you're bringing to it, and that people are really, really, really are getting excited.
Mm.
And you don't have small dreams. I really love that because I don't know how to dream small either. But you're planning and working on an expansion that's going worldwide. I know, lucky us, you're coming over here. You're coming to the states. So what are the plans there? Because
Mm.
you're like a rocket
And
going.
Like with those big dreams, right? And we all understand the nature, I think. We generally understand that the universe is vibrational. And even when it comes to, say, manifesting and creation and what we can imagine, that is, I think, our God given innate abilities to create from that place. And what I love about homeopathy, and I guess this is where the magic and the whimsical nature comes in and the excitement for myself and my students as they're about to graduate, is that as a homeopath, you can wield the powers of vibration for good. So, where a lot of there is leading work, Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, a lot will talk about all of these aspects with vibration and with frequency and how we must alter ours. And then I feel as a homeopath, we have the cheat code. Literally in our medical textbooks, we have it written for people with a poverty mindset, right? With a fear, a lack mentality of never having enough. Or we have lycopodium, this remedy where we can see fears of failure, and they tend to procrastinate a lot because they are scared to go for it in case they fail. And, lycopodium, it's a remedy I've taken before. It was wonderful. And I wouldn't be where I am, sort of like this rocket, if it weren't for the homeopathy being able to chisel out of me aspects that a lot of people think it's their personality. And it's
Mm.
not, it's
That's
a
such a big one.
vibration.
That's such a big one. Sorry to interrupt here, but I think you hit the nail on the head by people resigning to the thought, "That's just me. That's just who I am. That's just part of my natural." And you go, "Actually, that's not true. That's just part of a program that's running, and you can change it." Right?
Yeah. And so our students are really a testimony to this a lot when they started, like they couldn't resist signing up because they wanted to learn more, but they thought, will I like ever really use this in practice? I'm such a shy person. I'm really scared. I just don't have what it takes to, do this, or they feel cognitively not like strong in the mind. But with homeopathy, clearing out so many of those layers and what I'm witnessing, these are now world changes. And it's available for all of us. And so, yeah, and with this sort of energy, we are looking to open up these healing centers, like legally. I wish I could call them homeopathic hospitals. We'll see where we get to one day, but that really is what they were. I visited in Philly, the Hahnemann Hospital that was there, and it was phenomenal, phenomenal, huge, hundreds of rooms, if not more, just incredible what used to exist. And so we would really like to get these being erected like brick and mortar places where people can go. And in a world that is increasingly, stepping away from like real humanity and connection, there is something in like that, having a homeopathic physician, who you love and trust, who will care for you, your family, your children, who will know you, like build relationship. A lot of people used to book in with me when I first graduated and I started getting big in fertility. I was seeing people in Lebanon, in the Middle East, Bosnia. I was sending these remedies all around the world, and I was very grateful to do so. A lot in America and a lot in Australia. But I believe that the future is local in terms of like building resilience and resistance. I think we need these centers, we definitely need them in every state, but every person needs access to it. In my mind, what we actually need to work towards is, at the moment, say in the US, you have over 1 million medical doctors. If we were able to train up even, 300,000 homeopaths, this would really address the chronic health issues, because we know that, medicine, established medicine as it is, brilliant for traumas, emergency surgeries, those sort of life-saving things. They can be brilliant for immense, pain relief, for example, when it's required. So there's lots of good. But what we're finding definitely in Australia is that our healthcare system is taxed by chronic disease for which they can offer really no curative solutions. They don't even try to pretend that they can cure, eczema, asthma, hay fever, allergies. It's really, you need the steroid creams, or you need the inhalers, or if you've got endometriosis, we're just going to put you on the pill. They do not acknowledge getting to the root cause of things and actually healing and trying to be drug free. So if we brought the homeopaths in, my gosh, we would just revolutionize, health, and people would actually start to thrive. We've got so much of the mental health issues, and it's such a low vibe thing. We've got people with this severe victim mentality and they're stuck in it. The energy is so strong. It's all about woe is me and so complaining and so negative. They don't really want to be that way. They don't know it, right? They're addicted to the stress hormones. It's all they've ever known, this familiar little program they're going to run. But when given a well indicated homeopathic remedy and they release the trauma or the abuse that happened in those earlier years that have made them feel like a victim their whole life, we actually change the entire, experience of their life. And as such, what even comes into it, as human beings with this vital force, with this field, it's our spirit, but we are emitting and receiving vibrationally all the time. So when you change what you're emitting with a homeopathic remedy, it is so common. I can't tell you. I mean, it happened to me. Your relationships, right? I was really, before I took that lycopodium, I was seeking, I wanted to get married and settle down. But I had this serious vibrational loop that was just keeping me from it. My parents had been divorced many times. And it was all of those subconscious programs that were playing that I could not physically override. I mean, I had prayed on it, I'd meditated on it, but it was so deeply rooted, my fears of failing in that area. By taking the homeopathic remedy lycopodium to purge all of those fears, the fear of commitment and da da da, fear of failure, my husband walked into my life within, 48 hours. And then we were having kids not long after. And so I would say to people, homeopathy is good for all of us. You don't have to have, a physical thing holding you back. You just experiencing it, just see what happens when any of those limiting beliefs are out of the way. So yeah, you think about that, right? And you think about the way they're trying to use our minds currently to feed into creating these technocratic, totalitarian, kind of society. And I think if everybody had access to homeopathic treatment, you reconnect to that true spirit, but then you have resilience. You can stand up and say, actually, no. And we stand up strongly in this vibrationally embodied way, not in necessarily the freedom fighter who's really suffering and that martyr. We want that magic. We want that, sort of whimsical way. And I think that is how we win the next, season of humanity.
You're just bringing your whole self to the game, versus just the angry part or just the angry part can, don't get me wrong, it has its, it has its
Anger,
use case. Yeah,
anger,
it can be a catalyst, right?
Anger tells us that a boundary has been crossed. There has been a violation. In homeopathy, a lot of what we are doing with our remedies is allowing people to get that anger out. And when we don't, then obviously it can lead to bitterness, resentment. You see cancers growing, you see all sorts of pathology as a result of that. But it is a good thing to know there is righteous anger, like when a boundary has been crossed, like our government and people around us have done. Absolutely, we should be able to experience and express that, before it turns into the more toxic internal resentment. So yeah, I love a bit of fire. Fire, fire will keep us, safe. Mm.
I've seen you during the COVID years. I've seen you be that warrior in Australia, and you fired up the socials. Great work there. I mean, fantastic work. I think you were a catalyst for many people to think bigger thoughts and to transcend fears. So I think you did your part tremendously. And now you're teaching people. You have this Remedy Academy, RMDY Academy, and there's a ton of people that are going through this amazing program. But oftentimes when people hear about this, they're like, "Oh, do I have to be a doctor? Do I have to have a
Mm,
medical background? Who is this for? Who can enter? Who can become a
mm.
homeopath?
Yeah, literally, we have everyone. We have builders, like men in their 40s, 50s who want a career change. And we've got, people coming straight out of school and joining us. We've got a lot of mums, a great portion. And I think
I love that.
yeah, and the way that we teach in there, we, and it's brilliant being a homeopath because you're really looking at the symptoms. So when a woman comes and she's saying, I've got heavy, painful periods, these are my symptoms. As a homeopath, we take that straight to our repertory. You don't need to ask about, well, what's your progesterone level? How's your liver? Run all these tests. We are so blessed because symptoms tell us what is needed to recalibrate that field. So it's just such a beautiful career. And using the frequency medicines, it is so safe. That's why around the world it's largely unregulated at this point, because it is very hard to cause harm with a remedy that can only stimulate your field. So I definitely recommend, if people want to do the deep work, you definitely want to work with a homeopath, because a lot of the things that are going to come up, people aren't, going to expect. And even the physical symptoms, when you take a remedy and you break out with a rash from head to toe, a lot of people might think, oh no, what's going on? And yet the homeopath goes, bingo, you're about to witness profound healing after this clears up, because it's a hugely detoxifying aspect of homeopathy. And in that, even understanding, the different thought patterns that start to come up. So when people take a remedy, it's not uncommon that their dreams will start to change. Definitely, they start to have a lot of epiphanies and they're thinking about their childhood. And having that homeopath to walk through that process with is invaluable. But really, every single person who is graduating with us, and we had over 500 in our first cohort. We had 570, which in terms of homeopaths around the world, it is phenomenal numbers. Like, that is
It's
not,
unheard of.
it's unheard of. It
When I
truly
say
is.
you started a revolution, I meant it, Mel. Like you are starting a revolution. This is really exciting. And now
Yeah.
the new academy is about to start very soon. I know doors
Yeah.
are closing very soon. So anyone who wants to join, it's probably best to sign up now, right?
Yeah, yeah. If you're interested in it, please reach out. So, Remedy Academy, we've got an Instagram page with lots of information. A lot of our current students, their testimonials, and all the information, or it's on our website. We've also got a YouTube channel for Remedy Academy, but it is going just gangbusters. We've got an even bigger cohort already signed up. That's joining this one that's closing soon. So we kick off in September. So we're just trying to really finalize all our enrollments before then. But in that 2 years, our students, they go out into the world and they receive cases. That's how they show us what they're capable of. And we have really made this 2-year course, it's like an apprenticeship style, right? It's practical. You're not writing one assignment. I have no interest in like a chat GPT regurgitated thing about homeopathy that we're seeing in other, areas. Like education, the face of education itself is changing. And so I'm so glad I stuck to my guns. I didn't want to go through any government hoops. I didn't want to jump through anyone's hoops. All I cared about is that we create a phenomenal course. And in the 2 years, I've witnessed over 17,000 cases be received by our students. And in that, we are seeing things from, oh my goodness, like it rain. It's the whole thing. Like, some people will come to us and they'll say, I've had chronic constipation for 25 years. I can only move my bowels every 7 to 10 days. And the student receives this case, and this woman, that has profoundly impacted her life. By day 10, she can hardly eat, she's feeling sick, and this has been the whole experience of it. Now, she has tried how many colonoscopies, how many different supplements, thousands of dollars of investigative tests, and our student prescribes this one remedy, 2 drops under the tongue 3 times a week. Immediately her bowels are moving completely appropriately every single day. And these are the sorts of things that, when people experience it, they never will go back to another system of medicine. They'll realize, whoa, this really can do it all. And in our academy, we do have a bit more of a liberal approach. So if you go back to Samuel Hahnemann, who was the medical doctor, he was the genius, he was the founder. If you guys ever go to DC, look out for his huge statue. It looks like a shrine. It is absolutely huge in DC. You guys only honor one medical doctor with a statue at DC. He's not even a, mainstream medical physician. He's not even American. It is Samuel Hahnemann. And the presidents of the day, they absolutely recognized what homeopathy represented for the people. They used a lot of homeopathy along, we call them like the elite. Rockefeller had 3 private homeopaths. The British royal family have been treated by homeopaths for the last 6 generations. Apparently, Queen Elizabeth II says her hay fever was cured by allium cepa, which is a homeopathic remedy made from red onion. And she wouldn't travel without a homeopathic first aid kit. So to me, it's like if it is good enough for these people, they have no interest in hiding it from the rest of us. And it's our, mission to get that back into the hands of the everyday people. Another aspect of all of the centers that we plan to open is something that was sort of modeled off Samuel Hahnemann's day and his wife, Melanie Hahnemann. So they would provide treatment. So they actually retired in Paris in the end, and they were treating a lot of the upper society, people who would afford to pay and invest in these consults. But they would always open, to the general public and the poor in the afternoon for those who can't afford it. And it would be very much hustle and bustle. And I've had the privilege of working in a few different homeopathic settings where it's hustle and bustle like quick, and it's such a fun vibe, and it's such an inexpensive medicine that just with a couple of volunteer hours a week, we can change lives of those people who can't afford it. And I like to acknowledge that because these days, some people are really pressed against a wall financially. It is tough, times. And so until you can get back, on your feet and well, I do think that we should be working to support everybody. It's when, as a human collective, we all rise, really, it makes the whole world better. And this is why, originally when I was talking to my husband, I said, look, I think you should quit your very good paying, stable, secure job so that I can wing it with this homeopathy gig. It's that if we don't completely change like the way these generations are coming up, if we allow them to receive um, injections nonstop from birth, we are in such a crisis point. Like, I worked in fertility, I understand the decline in sperm health, what that writing on the wall is for us if we don't take matters into our own hands. And I think in a way they don't really even care about that because their transhuman kind of agendas it would be fine if we were infertile. But for me, the horrors of that and the grief and the pain I've seen couples walk through who desperately want a family, I think it's our duty to protect people. And it's a human right, I think, to understand how the body, how the spirit, how the mind actually operates. And none of us were equipped. We were actually indoctrinated to believe the opposite. And so, yeah, that's where our mission really kicks off.
For the viewers out there, if you're listening to Mel and all the things that she's doing, you wouldn't believe it, but she actually sat down and wrote one of the best books I've written in a long time. Moving, beautiful, joyous, informative, deep. It's called Humans of Homeopathy. And Mel, you send me a copy. It's now becoming available. It's one of the few books in recent times I've read almost cover to cover. It's such a beautiful, like, in the photography and most of all, not a hint of AI in it. I know you sat down and actually wrote the book, and I can
Mhm.
feel the humanness in it. It's a beautiful, wonderful work that I hope is going to land on everybody's shelves as like a standard. And you really go through your personal history with homeopathy cases, and you tell the stories, and you show the hardships, and then you show the beautiful recoveries and the lives that were changed. How was it for you to kind of step back a little bit and write that book?
It's so funny. I did it quite quickly. It was actually after a trip to the US. I definitely punched out a lot of chapters on the plane. I was alone and I was listening and just it just and and I felt like emotional typing it. And it is in the way that I was trying to bring it forward with stories. I think it is in people hearing other people's stories that we see ourselves in that, right? And I wanted it to be showing, the roots of where some of these things come from, the struggles that it can be. Because with homeopathy, in some cases, look, it is like you take the drops under the tongue, and then a lot of people's issues can just sort of resolve. It is alchemy. Homeopathy is an alchemical process in the highest order. And when you go back to Samuel Hahnemann, the medical doctor who founded it, he was a brilliant mind. He knew 11 different languages, or more than, I believe. And so he could translate these medical texts, but having worked in the largest esoteric library in Romania under Baron von Bruckenfell, he is reading the alchemical works of Dr. Isaac Newton, Boyle, like he was really exposed to it. So when we're talking alchemy, it is transmuting that energy right out of the field. So it completely changes people, but the process, it can be really, really rough. I saw this reel on Instagram that I loved, and it was like, it was a movie scene and it was like an exorcism. And the thing was, when the exorcist is busy, so you call in the homeopath. And it is true. Like when you see
I like
some of these deep rooted ancestral things being torn out. And, it also brings into question the idea of, spiritual. It depends on people's beliefs, but I have had situations, whether it is cases of bipolar or in children who seem to be very spiritually attacked, if you will, night terrors, some compulsive self-harming, or things where they wake up in the night and are just screaming and they're not really there, or people who can even see spirits and are having this sort of, influence in their life. There are homeopathic remedies, and I believe it's that we have fortified and we have protected the field, because these children, when you think to yourself, could it possibly be a placebo element? But when they're taking it, a lot of these kids that we're working with, they're 2, 3, 4 years old. They have no idea about what they're taking under the tongue. The parents often won't even tell them, and they say they're sleeping soundly. Wow, their behavior has completely changed. While they're not banging their head against the door until they bleed anymore. And so I also think it is an important aspect for spiritual protection in this world. Some people truly are very susceptible to being thrown around by that. And not surprisingly, that group of people is also very prone to addictions like alcoholism, drug use. And they're often very empathetic. They're good people, but in order to cope in this world, that's sort of the adaptations that they've had. Um, so yeah, there's that aspect as well. I forget what I was saying before that.
you were talking about the
Oh,
book, the process of
oh
writing a
yeah.
book.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes. And so, yeah, I loved putting that out there. I've tried to cover a few different aspects. So, like a fertility case that was memorable, a young boy who was really vaccine injured, a flu vaccine, and how he couldn't walk, and then through homeopathy was healed. Jean, you would have been probably the first outsider from not in my team who received and read the book. So I'm so honored that you did love it.
I
Um,
loved it, and before I got the book, I got the PDF, and let me just tell you, I was sitting outside on our porch at night, and I was, I had it on the phone, and I was, like, pushing it back and forth so I could read the whole thing, and I was just mesmerized by the storytelling. It's beautiful storytelling. It's inspiring. It moved me. It reminded me of the beauty of it, of the magic, of homeopathy. And I've been sort of exposed to it since childhood, on and off. And just, something that, I like I say, I hope it's going to land on everybody's shelf and they're going to pick it up read a chapter, get inspired, because it's homeopathy is meant to be used. It's meant to be a
Mm,
part of your life. It's not something that you just, every now and then look at, but it's part of your, like, you
mm.
have these, you have
Kits.
these,
Mm,
these kids that are like, the starter or the first aid kids, and it's easier than people think. It comes with such a booklet, and then people can read about and find their symptoms. It doesn't necessarily replace, you know, having an actual session with a homeopath when you have to go deeper, but it can be a really great first aid if you have symptoms, if you're struggling with something, if you have aches. I've seen it work so many times so beautifully. We've always had kids for our kids when they were younger. We didn't use any allopathic medicine with them.
mm,
And it's just, once it becomes part of your life, like you say, it's hard to go back to other
mm.
modalities. But when is the book becoming officially available for those who are not lucky enough, like me, to read it beforehand?
So it is coming out on Tuesday, which I believe is the 14th, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, that will be, and we'll ship it worldwide. Anyone who wants to experience that. And I think a lot of people have heard of homeopathy and maybe they do have the kits and they know about it in that acute sense. But where a lot of people, come to us or they do one of our courses, we have a short course too, Jean, which I will send you the link to, and it is free. People just pop in that homeopath at checkout. And this course is 6 modules where people can learn, and it's me talking through, let's say, the remedy ignatia. Like, yes, it's a first aid remedy in the kit. It's for like grief. If you go through some sort of shocking grief, and it actually helps you to sort of integrate and move the energy around, because you'll have a lot of kids when parents will move houses, right? And they have to say goodbye to all their old friends, and the kids like lose their appetite or they're not sleeping right. This is the energy of grief that can get distorted. So we walk through that, but then we also have Dr. Isaac Golden, who he did his PhD at Swinburne University on using homeopathy to prevent infectious disease. So that is, the homeopathic equivalent. And then he also does vaccine detox. And so he is very, very popular. And you can imagine how busy he is. I think he would like to retire, but his work is it's just huge. Then you've got Sarah Valentini, who does the complex pediatric cases. So ADHD, ASD, PANS, PANDAS, these are a growing issue amongst our children, our grandchildren, that we want to be really aware of. Things like mold clearing, candida, that's all covered. And then we do the men's and women's remedies. That's probably my favorite. I think it's where most people are like, whoa, because they're like, oh my gosh, that's totally my husband. He's such an impatient jerk in the morning when he gets up, da da da. And it's like, you can really see it. And like that learning is so beautiful. So if anybody is listening to this and they are just like, man, I want to know more, I want to learn some of this for my home, I'll send you those links, John. And guys, yeah, have at it. And I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, and it's the stories and it's realizing that we are human beings and it is okay to struggle. And it is okay, whatever coping mechanisms we have used, whatever we have inherited down our family lines, but it's just knowing you don't need to be stuck there. And homeopathy just cracks that door open so that you can just see that glimpse of like how you want it to be, and then you keep that alchemical process going and it won't be long. You will arrive. And the freedom and the joy of your spirit is like, that's one thing. But I also believe that it really does help connect people like to our creator, and it helps them fulfill their life's purpose. And it's something that Samuel Hahnemann spoke about. And I think I put the proper quote in the book. And it's that health, it's not just the absence of disease. Like when you are in a true state of health and vitality, it should be such that you can fulfill your life's purpose. And there are lots of people out there, and yeah, they might not have, crippling anxiety, and they might not have these physical pathologies, but they've surrendered to just letting life rather than what they truly came here for, whether that is that they're going to be a musician or they're going to work in comedy, whatever it is. So It's that, I think, is what we should aim for, that our vessel be able to help us fulfill our life's purpose.
I love that, and it hits so close to home because by the year 2028, Mel, we'll have the first homeopath in our family officially. You inspired our daughter Kiara, who's she followed her mom's in her mom's footsteps and went specifically more into deep trauma healing over the last years and has done multiple educations on that. And you inspired her so greatly to learn homeopathy, and you invite her into the academy. So she's going to join you this fall, and is so excited, and we're so excited for her to have this path as well, and add it and combine it with the other things that she's learned and done. And we'll be blessed to have a homeopath in the family. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, I love it. And I can't wait, yes, to catch up with her because, yeah, around that area, Franklin, Nashville, that has been definitely calling us when we've come over there and we're trying to feel into where do we set up and just show America what's possible before we do this mass expansion. And I guess just to, speak out, it's like, a lot of people are looking around the world, they're looking at this pharma stronghold, the way that they manipulate, the way that they influence all of these other systems by buying them out. What we need to do, guys, is just Robin Hood all of those trillions and feed it back into all of these human centered initiatives. Look after our regen farmers. Medicine is one area, but the knock on effects of what we are going to create when we starve that corrupt system and we allow it to serve its purpose where it will be, emergency medicine when you need it. But for the rest, guys, we really got to take matters into our own hands, I think. And I'm so excited. I really think that we've got it. And the more people who get that vibrational alignment, there will be rockets firing off everywhere.
I have no doubt. Tell me, it's 2036, Mel. 10 years from now, what does the world look like from your point of view in 2036? What has changed?
I would like to see a hub, like a remedy hub in pretty much everywhere that you see a McDonald's. We'll just knock those down and build a remedy hub. Now, in those, you've got access to homeopaths. So they are like the family physician, they're caring and loving. I believe that the future is local. I would like to see it get back to much more communities that look after each other, where you really know your neighbor and you're connected, because no homeopathy in the world and no nutrition in the world can overcome a lack of connection with other human beings. So, really fostering those sort of loving community relationships. Um, and yeah, all of us getting back to a slower pace of life. It'll be much more conducive with how humans were actually meant to live. And yeah, so alternative schooling to me flows into that as well. At the moment, there are a lot of people who would love to, say, homeschool their kids, but they don't feel equipped and the systems aren't there to sort of support it. So, with these hubs, I would see them sort of as safe havens. And if we have as many as I desire to have, I believe that when certain things, ever try and come up, for example, data centers at the moment being erected left, right, and center, you need these places where people can get organized, where they can gather and a real resistance can actually form. So by 2036, I'm hoping that we're already over that hill and humanity, has sort of freed itself from the slavery that we currently find ourselves in. So that's really how I see it happening. Whether we have supernatural help in getting this done, I don't know, or whether the humans, we're tapping into that divinity within us. And it's through our imagination, it's through our creative processes that we come together. But it definitely, for me, it's a team effort that we are going to overcome. Grassroots, I love, and yeah, local systems, but all human centered.
Count me in. We're on board. Mel, where can people keep up with you? You have fantastic socials, entertaining and informative. Where can they find you?
So I do a lot of my talking on Instagram. So that's at that homeopath. We've got the YouTube channels for some of our longer form conversations with lecturers or deeper concepts. But generally, I'm on Instagram. That's really where it's at, guys. So our website, yeah, and accessing those courses all through there. But otherwise, you'll find me in RMDY Academy, just really training up this new wave to go out into the world.
Click on the link down below, Remedy Collective. Check it all out. It's the hub for everything you might want to look into, whether that's the book, whether that's the academy, whether that's your first aid kits, the free course, access to Mel on the socials and so forth. Mel Kupsch, I call you the
Yeah.
heart and face of homeopathy in the 21st century. Okay, so this is what you are over here at Inspired. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you to your beautiful family, to Matt, your husband, your children. We got to meet your in-laws. Got to spend some time here together in Tennessee. It was absolutely fabulous, and what a beautiful tribe you've built all over the place to bring forth this vision into the world. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you so much, Sean. I can't wait to see you and Christine soon.
Same here. And Inspire Tribe, thank you so much for tuning in. You know, we love you. We appreciate you. And we'll be back with you again very, very soon. Your environment shapes everything, your thoughts, your health, your energy. But most people never question the invisible field they live in. We did. And that's when FLFE found us. It's not a product, it's a field of pure life force energy that lifts everything it touches. We now live in it 24/7, and we would love to invite you to experience it too. Start your free 15-day trial now. No pressure, no strings attached. Just the truth, resonance, and peace.